This meeting is being recorded.
And good evening, everyone. ESS proudly presents the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Leone, Dave Broughton, and myself, Pete Goslaw. And our very special guest, second time on the show, Coach Jason Leone from SUNY Oswego, men's basketball. Welcome to the program again, Coach.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm pretty fired up about this.
A lot to talk about tonight, so I'll let Joey just take it and run.
Well, Coach, second timer for you, and this one's kind of exciting because this one won't be as much about your background like we did with the first show, but just being able to talk about this season, college hoops in general. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on with your season. Unbelievable year, and congratulations on that. But
thank you.
Also, your connection with Tobin Anderson, who obviously has had a great season, and his whole life has changed here in the last 2-3 weeks, and just the state of college basketball in general, because it's just what a Final Four we have this year, something different than I think anybody's than we've ever seen before, with no top 3 seeds and some really older teams. So we're looking to get your take on all that stuff. But first off, let's talk about your season, making it to the Elite Eight this year. You went in the SUNYACs again. Congratulations on that. What was that like? What was the run like? Did you sense this coming? Did they overachieve? Give us a little history on this past great season for Oswego State basketball.
Well, thanks for all the kind words. It was a magical run for us. Going into the season, it's really difficult to project how things are going to go. I think one of the harder things to do in coaching, Joey, and you know this, is managing expectations. Last year we sort of flew under the radar and caught people by surprise with the season we had with 27 wins and reaching the Sweet 16. And then we returned all of our leading scorers, except for one, going into this year. So we were a bit surprised being ranked 5th in the country preseason in the national poll. So that added to the excitement, but also to the pressure of performing this year. And I took a little bit of a different approach going into the season, where we addressed things head on with the players. I think this particular group is a very competitive group that I've had. And I think when presented with a challenge, they typically have risen to the occasion. So this year we talked a lot about, managing the whole process of the season. Ultimately, our team was probably going to be judged by most people with what we did in the last week of February and early March with our conference tournament and the NCAA tournament. And a common problem with that is that, you don't enjoy and you look forward all the time to that point in the season. But as you know, you can't just fast forward time. And part of having a good season is you have to go through some peaks and valleys and adversity and learn how to manage that. And you also have to form a team. Although our team, we had a lot of tangible statistics and numbers coming back this year, the team was different. We lost some pieces, we added some pieces, and guys are a year older. So we have to, build a team from scratch every single year. And you just don't know what direction that's going to take you. So I'm really proud with the result of this season. Obviously, 28 wins is another school. We set a school record for the second year in a row. We advanced to the Sweet 16 for the 4th time in 7 years. And the one thing we hadn't done is we hadn't gotten past that barrier of the Sweet 16. And, we got to the Elite Eight, and we did it in significant fashion by knocking off the #1 team in the country on their home court. And I was told they had the longest home court winning streak in the history of college basketball, Division I, II, or III, at 64 games, and we ended that. Surprisingly to me, we beat them pretty handily. So it was a great run. We had our share of adversity. I lost my dad unexpectedly 2 weeks before the season started. It was, my dad and I were really close, and the only reason I share that is not to put any type of spotlight on myself, but our players really helped me this year. And so many times we look at a coaching position and say, that we're the ones that are mentoring younger people. And this year I allowed myself to be vulnerable, and they really helped to mentor me, and it was difficult for me to put a smile on my face at times this year, and they gave me a reason to smile. And we shared a very special season together and built a lot of fond memories. So that's a little bit long-winded, but that was a lot of the things that went through my head when I thought about, this season and its results.
So many times you hear that a team, we're a family, and to the point where it almost becomes cliche. But in your instance, and in a lot of instances, it's true. I mean, it's really true, and that sounds like that's what you had going there, with your players and helping you get through a tough time, and then going on and having such a great year.
Yeah, it really is true. And being involved in a sports team is so unique because everybody has their own family, right? But you're just thrust into this situation where you spend so much time, and it's almost, the analogy I give the players, it's almost like on October 15th we go into the submarine together, and we kind of don't come up for air until after it's over. And although it's a 2-hour-a-day thing, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, you really do become entrenched in a lot of different emotions and problem solving throughout those 3, 4, 5 months. And then, one of the things I tell people is the abruptness with which it ends is indescribable to people that don't go through it. You're entrenched in this routine of practice every day and player meetings and weightlifting and film sessions. And then all of a sudden it's literally just over. You don't do it the next day. So it's being a part of a sports team is a very unique experience.
Coach, you're going to be losing, if I'm not mistaken, 4 seniors, I think, next year. Is that correct?
Well, normally I'd say yes, but we're in the middle of this COVID thing. And we have everybody coming back next year except for Devin Green, who was an all-region player. He'll be a big loss for us, but all the guys that have the opportunity to come back with that extra year will be doing so. So again, next year we'll have some very high expectations on our group, and we're really excited about our team next year. We've got to, obviously do a good job with player development with our current roster, and then obviously we're going to have to add a couple pieces here in recruiting and see if we can make a run at this thing next year.
That was my next question. What do you have? What's looking forward?
Pardon me?
What do you have looking forward coming in, freshman?
Well, we just got a big commitment from a young man from General Brown, actually, a North Country kid, 6'7" kid, and Tucker Rosebrook, and he's going to be a really good player for us. We're pretty excited about him. He fills our most prominent need, and that's that he brings size and physicality to our team that we don't have on the interior. He'll be a freshman, so given the team we have coming back, as we've explained to him, we never count on recruits to come in and help our team. There certainly has been a lot of them that have come in and helped right away, but I'm not sure as a freshman, a 17 or 18-year-old's really going to move the needle with us. But if there was one, he would be the one. He's a pretty gifted guy as a younger player. So we're looking forward to big things from him, and we think he very well could help us a lot next year as a freshman.
What's your expectancy expectation? Excuse me, for next year. What do you think? Do you want to try to be better than the 88? Because I mean, you're coming off a great season, and you're Region 3 Coach of the Year also. Congratulations on that. And,
Thank you.
And so, what's your expectations for next year? You want to go a little bit higher, or how you want to? I mean, you're only losing one, so it's going to be a great feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, Pete. Yes. The answer is. You have to be very cautious as a coach with how you approach those conversations with your team. I don't think I have to sit in a room and tell the team that we want to make it farther. I think part of the charm of this particular group of players that I'm coaching is they're going to want to do that, and they talk about that. I don't think they need their coach standing up in front of them telling them, "Okay, guys, we want to make a Final Four, win a national championship." I think that's something they already talk about, and I think getting a taste of where we were this year and seeing the teams we beat the 10th ranked team in the country and the number 1 team in the country on their home court in successive games. And then we lost to an unranked team who, was probably should have been ranked. They finished 4th in the country just ahead of us. But yeah, I think, I'm very cautious about placing a win total or a postseason advancement as a goal of any team that I coach. I think the difficulty with doing that is it's results oriented, and we don't know. There's a lot of things that could happen. For instance, this year, I hate to talk about this, but we lost one of our all-league players from a year ago, broke his foot in our preseason and was out for the year. So we did all of this year without an all-conference player, So, and we have him coming back next year for a 6th year. But my point being, I don't want the players thinking about something that won't be determined until February or March before the season starts. I think our goals have got to be to prepare ourselves for any adversity that comes our way. We've got to be so tough-minded. And I think advancing to the Elite Eight, we're only halfway towards winning a national championship, winning 3 games. You have to win 6. And the lesson learned was you have to play really, really well every night, and you have to be healthy. One of the things in the game we lost, our point guard who played so well in our game against Randolph-Macon tweaked his groin and, wasn't fully healthy in our game on Saturday in the Elite Eight. And to Wisconsin Whitewater's credit, they did a great job. It wasn't because of an injury that we lost. But I also would have loved to see us have a key at full strength that game, especially in a game that was decided by 1 possession. So I just think it's really, really hard to sit there and talk to a team about where you want to be in March when there's so many things that you need to accomplish first on that journey. And that's really what I've learned from coaching the NCAA tournament as many times as we have gotten there now is, it takes a lot of time to form a really strong unit. It's practice, it's teachable moments, it's a lot of things that are unquantifiable, if that makes sense. So sure, I think the expectation around our program and nationally is we'll be a team that will be talked about in conversations with making the Final Four, but I'm very cautious about, especially at this time of year in preseason, talking about those types of things.
Coach, what about something, a lot of people probably don't think about, but what about the turnaround time for Division III? You guys you're beating Randolph-Macon. You don't even really have time to celebrate. You got to come back the next day and play that game. You don't get the day off to prepare the way they do in D1. Is that something that you've gotten used to now, that all these trips that you've made, that were you mentally prepared to, beat Randolph-Macon and then you got to come right back the next day? Granted, in the injury, you don't have time, maybe that injury is something where one day would have helped that,
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Joey. It's unique to our tournament, but the one thing I do say is like both teams are dealing with the same thing. Wisconsin Whitewater, the team we played in the Elite Eight, they were down 6 points with 30 seconds to go in their Sweet 16 game, and they had a miraculous comeback and won in overtime. So, in their locker room, they're thinking, did we expend too much energy? We played all five of our starters 40 plus minutes. We stole the game. They had their own emotion in their own right. And ours was a different deal. We obviously played in front of a packed house. Nobody expected us to win the game. And our guys were so dialed in. And then, you go in the locker room afterwards and, it's up on D3 hoops, the amount of national attention it got relative to our level. It's not like FDU beating Purdue, but relative to our level, it was all over social media, and our guys, I'm sure all of their phones were, jammed with text messages and congratulatory messages. And I know mine was. And, less than 24 hours, to your point, we've got to get ready to play a game to go to the Final Four. So there's no question that's a challenge. We hadn't been through it, so you can't necessarily prepare for it. I was, the way I handled it, I don't know if it was right or not. We didn't let the players go out, too much after the game. By the time we got done with the media and getting dressed and stuff, we got back to our hotel probably about 10:30. And I obviously hadn't started even watching film, not knowing who we were going to play. And I was focused on the Randolph-Macon game. So my staff and I were up till probably about 4 a.m. putting together a game plan. We got the guys in their own rooms, got them pizzas, told them they could relax with each other, but we wanted them in their rooms till 11 o'clock. And we were trying the best we could to isolate them from going and getting all the pats on the back. And, I thought there was going to be a time and a place for that once the season was over, but we were trying to get their focus on the next day as much as possible. I didn't watch us play on Saturday against Whitewater and feel like there was remnants. It was funny. I just met with a player today in his exit meeting. He said that he felt like the team was a little bit flat. You do go from playing in front of an absolutely jam-packed house that was sold out to playing in a neutral site game in front of 100 people, which is more like the games we normally play. And there's a little bit of an emotional letdown that goes with that, I think, that, you've got to be able to deal with, So anyways, look at Wisconsin deserves credit. They beat us and they played much better than we did. The fact that we had an opportunity to tie the game on the last possession was to our guys' credit too. It really took a good team to beat us this year.
Well, Coach, great year for you. Great year for, again, representing the SUNYACs, the SUNYAC conference the way you did. And Devin played in the Division III All-Star game, right? Am I right with that?
He actually ended up not playing. He got ill right before he was supposed to board his flight, and they wouldn't let him on the flight just with COVID protocols and things like that. So he didn't have COVID, but he was ill at the airport, and they wouldn't let him board the plane. So he ended up not playing the game, unfortunately. But he was selected, and that was a nice honor for him.
Oh, good. Well, Coach, obviously you go from the end of your season, and then I see that you were in Dayton to watch Coach Anderson and FDU and their first round game. I think that's what they call that, first round game. So
first four.
So talk a little bit about, what that meant to you. Obviously good friends with Tobin. You coached together up here in the North Country at Clarkson for 3 seasons together?
For 3 seasons, yes.
Yeah. So talk about what that's his little run that he made, which was, his win against Purdue will be one of those moments for me as a guy that watches college basketball whenever you can. I won't forget where I was. I was with a bunch of, I was with Dave, I think. Wasn't I with you, Dave?
Yeah.
Yes. I was with Dave. That's how much fun I was having. I can't remember who I was with. we're down in Glens Falls.
Yeah,
watching.
well, to properly do this thing justice, to give your listeners a little background, Tobin and I met right after I had gotten out of college at the University of Rochester. Tobin was an assistant at Lemoyne College, and I'm from Syracuse, New York. So I would go over and play, pick up basketball at Lemoyne quite a bit, and work Dave Paulson's camps. Dave, you guys might know, was the head coach at St. Lawrence a long time ago before Chris Downs, and went on to be to win a national championship at Williams College and as a head coach there, and then moved on to Division I at Bucknell and George Mason. And actually today, just a couple hours ago, he got named the head coach at Holy Cross.
Oh, really?
In Worcester, Mass. Yeah. So our coaching circle is pretty strong and a lot of success involved in that circle. But anyways, I met Tobin through Dave Paulson at those camps, and I had accepted a job to be the graduate assistant at SUNY Potsdam in 1999 when I graduated, and Tobin had just been named the head coach at Clarkson University. So I didn't work for him right away, but I was at Potsdam, and we would take recruiting trips together. And I was still playing basketball at that point and in shape, and so was he. And we'd have some pretty memorable one-on-one battles and played full court one-on-one, and we'd work, and we were both single and didn't have girlfriends. So we would, work until all hours and work, and then we'd play basketball. We'd go eat dinners and stuff that you did when you were, 21, 22 years old, just trying to make a name for yourself in this industry. So his position opened up after my first year at Potsdam, and he invited me to be his assistant at Clarkson. We worked together for 3 years and created a lot of memories and a great friendship. He got married shortly after I left to become the assistant at Mercyhurst University. I was in his wedding. Years later, I got married. He was in mine. He's a friend that I talk to every day. I actually just got off the phone with him an hour ago. So, he finally caught a break and got to the Division I level this past summer. And it was the only school that had ever interviewed him for a Division I job. So he'd been trying like heck to break in, and like a lot of small college coaches, just couldn't break through and get that opportunity to sell himself. And he kept winning and winning and winning. And so in answer to your question, going to see him was in the NCAA tournament it was almost like I felt like I was coaching because of our relationship. And it was a nice culmination to the year I had between losing my dad and then our team having such a successful year. And 2 days later, hopping in the car and having a long ride to myself, and picked up one of his other former assistants at the airport in Columbus. We got down to Dayton and got a chance to spend time with Tobin the night before the game, and went to the game, saw him win. And then you're thinking, okay, this is awesome. They got an NCAA tournament win under their belt, and there's no way they're going to beat Purdue. They left right after the game to go up to their hotel in Columbus. We stayed, me and one of his other former assistants from Clarkson, we stayed overnight in our hotel in Dayton, got up at 6 a.m. and drove up to Columbus, and I had breakfast with him in his new hotel. And I sat and watched film with him for 5 or 10 minutes. And it's a very memorable conversation because, he had no thought process or tone that would suggest to you that he thought his team was going to go there and be happy to be there or just try to compete as best they can. He was realistic that he thought it was a long shot, but he goes, listen, these are the two things we're going to do. And I think if we do those things well, like heck, we're going to let this thing rip. And I think there's a couple things we do that could potentially bother this team. So I walked out of there, I got in the car. I said, this guy's just unbelievable. I said, I give him a lot of credit. He's not that he should be negative, but I thought to myself, this guy's nuts. If you were talking to him, you would think that he was like, we're going to beat these guys. His video on CBS got a lot of play, and it really was a misquote. Like, if you really watch the video, he was saying to his assistants, I don't want Purdue to hear this. It's obviously his first time winning a game. And Tobin's, although we're close friends, he's wired a little differently than I am. So he was he was pretty exuberant, and in his exuberance, he probably said some things that he felt like probably should have taken back. But that's him, though. You know what I mean? He's a gunslinger and very confident guy. And it serves him really well. And when you get on that stage and you're in all those press conferences and you're a small college guy, you've got to fend for yourself, and you got to have a little bit of piss and vinegar to you, and he certainly does. And so I laughed, and he was, kind of disappointed that I was leaving. But my wife and I have this thing where when my season's done, the next weekend we go to whatever the closest city is, and we go watch NCAA tournament games and kind of catch up on the rest in the hotel. And my in-laws or my parents watch our kids. So we went to Albany. I had tickets lined up for us, and we had a hotel. And I drove there, and I said, "Look, we got to watch this game tomorrow night. We're gonna have to find a bar in the arena, and I'm gonna go there and watch the game. I'm gonna miss the third game out of the 4 that we're gonna see." And she's like, "Yeah, no problem." So, we're watching the game, and the thing is nip and tuck, and I think either Purdue was up 1 or FDU was up 1 at halftime. So I'm like, well, now we're not going back to the seats. I was thinking there was a chance the thing was going to be a blowout, and then we'd go and watch. I forget who played. It was maybe UConn played that game, or no, they beat Iona. Miami might have been the third game. So, anyways. They're just hanging around. And then finally Purdue gave them a gut punch. I think they got up 8 or 9. And then I said, all right. Yeah. I walked back to the seats. I had it on my phone, and son of a gun, the thing got to 1 point again with 5 minutes to go. So I went back to the bar, and I'm watching this thing, and I said, son of a gun. So I was moved to tears when they finally pulled this thing out, because it took me back to these moments we had at Clarkson, where we sat, and I wrote a Facebook post about a Pizza Hut we had dinner at on Market Street. And it's a flurry of emotion. And I'm living through this guy. And, the guy's, he, to your point, he changed his life. And, but heck, he called me at 1 a.m. We're on the phone for an hour. And, Tobin's got the humility where our relationship will never change. You know what I mean? And I'm just happy as heck for him as my friend. This is an unbelievable story.
Absolutely, and I think back to our interview with him, and the way you described him. He definitely he's a very positive energy, high energy guy. I mean, I can see him, what you were saying about talking about the Purdue game, not as we're going to be happy to be there, we're going to get beat, but no, and making a game plan that they're going to win. I can see that, and that just from the interview that we had with him.
Yeah, I think that's important. At a much lower level, I went through the same thing with my team, and I was sitting there, and I was thinking about the things we needed to do to try to beat Randolph-Macon. And I said to myself, you know what? I think the whole thing is like Randolph-Macon probably plays with so much confidence at home, and they probably win a lot of games just because teams go into their building and think they can't win. So I said, we need to start by talking to our team about having belief, and I think you start there, you got to build mindset. So the players really firmly believe that they can win if they do a couple things well, and then you get into game plan, and then eventually, you guys know, when you're an underdog, there's going to be a moment in time where you get a gut punch, and then the team, has to finish the game, and watching Tobin's FDU game against Purdue, I saw that, they had belief. You could tell in the first half that they could win, and they did a lot of things from an execution perspective. And then, Purdue gave him a gut punch, and they had to go and finish the game. And the kid hit the pick and pop 3 there. So I asked Tobin after the game, I said, were you nervous? He's like, well, hell yeah, I was nervous. And I said, well, when did you think he had a chance? He's like, well, he goes, look, I thought we could play with them, but then, I just thought the officials or, we just would make a dumb play, or they would make a play, and then we'd be kind of disappointed at the end. He goes, but then when we ran the pick and roll and the kid picked and popped to the top of the key there, made the shot, the kid Sean Moore, he was like, okay, like there's a minute to go. Son of a gun, I think we're going to win this thing, you know?
I tell you what, we go back to talking about, you said he's wired a little different. I watched, I didn't leave the seat watching the game. He's a cheerleader himself on the sidelines. He has so much energy that it filters through to his players, and you could see that late in the game how they were just feeding off the coach. And I mean, it's amazing just to watch him coach on the sidelines, and everybody got a good look at what he really is all about.
Yeah, he's always been that way. He's a person that inspires other people, and I think where that comes from, Pete, is he's a worker. You know what I mean? Like, so he grew up the son of a coach, and he's spent so many hours in the gym over the course of his life. It's infectious to his players to see how hard that he works and how emotional he is about the game, you know. And you know, now that I've been a head coach for a long period of time and I worked for Tobin, one of the things that I took from our experience at Clarkson together was we had a really strong will about us, you know, where we, you know, we're in an underdog role there where, you know, Clarkson's not. It's a hard place to recruit to from a location perspective and the cost of the school and financial aid, and they don't have a ton of basketball tradition. And that was one of the things I learned from Tobin when we were there. We had to be that much more committed than everybody else just to have a chance, you know. And that's a big part of, you know, the way he was brought up. He was always in that underdog role, and he had to constantly be an overachiever in order to succeed. And I think he's really good at bringing that out in his players because of his background. And outside of his basketball acumen, I think his ability as a person to connect with other people, with a lot of different types of people, I think is a real strength of his. And when you watch his team play during this NCAA tournament run, I think, to your point, I think you could see that come through when you watch him on the sidelines, you know, coaching his team.
Definitely.
If he was nervous, you couldn't tell. I'll tell you that right. All the energy flowing through him.
No coach is ever going to look that way on the sidelines. We might look a little crazy, but we don't look nervous. But, you know, afterwards, you know, you're in the moment there, and yeah, you know, you can feel your heart beating and stuff. It's a good stress because you want to win. It takes you back to when you were a kid and played, probably, you know, and you just, but you're not playing. So that's it's always easier for the players in that regard. You know, the coaches have to put their hearts in their players' hands, you know. So, you know, you're just trying the best you can to put them in positions where they can succeed. And like to my earlier point, you know, you're in the submarine together for a long period of time, and eventually you get to that point in the season where the next time you lose, it can be over, and stakes are really high then. And, you know, I think that's where I think a coach's role is in terms of being a leader and somebody that provides encouragement for players in those moments of stress. I think can serve a coach really well, and Tobin's exceptional in that part of the profession.
And well, now we so I messaged Tobin on the weekend that he guaranteed making the tournament when he won his semifinal game in his conference, because he knew that Merrimack couldn't go.
Yeah.
And I was in Burlington, Vermont that weekend. Okay. And I had my FDU hat and was watching that FDU game along with a Vermont game in a bar in Vermont. And I took a photo of that cap saying, "Hey, I'm wearing this in Vermont tonight." And he messaged me the next day. And now I'm like, geez, I got to get rid of that cap. I've already got my I own a cap showed up today. So I'll start wearing that.
He's got, yeah, he's He's got. This is a great job that he took. They've got. I think it was really hard for him to leave in a short amount of time, but the resources that they have at Iona, it's been pretty impressive to hear about them from Tobin, and I think this is a job that he's going to be extremely successful at.
Well, and think of the list of coaches that have gone through Iona. Obviously, he's taken over for Rick Pitino. Jim Valvano coach there. Jerry and Tim Welch, the North Country Connections coach there. We're excited for him. And again, he's not that far away where maybe we'll be able to watch him play in person.
Sure.
And definitely probably see him on TV just even a little bit more now with him being at Iona. So,
yep.
Outstanding, and it couldn't be happier for him. And I know Dave and I were watching that game in a bar full of people, and everybody went nuts when they won, and that's just one of the coolest things ever. I won't forget that. We're down at the state Final Four, and actually Dave and I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I was sitting right next to, at the time, I didn't know who he was, but he knew Tobin personally. He was the head coach for Tappan Zee, who won the state championship for Class A the next day.
George Gaines. Yeah.
Yeah. They had just won their semifinal, and he's sitting next to me, and we're watching this game together. We're slapping fives, we're giving knuckles because we were all so happy for him. We all had a connection to him at somehow, some way. So it was really cool. And, to think that he did that, it's just amazing. And then, within a week, he's now the head coach at Iona. And I saw him on the Today Show. He's really gotten around in the last week.
Yeah. Well, he needed a police escort to get to his suite in Madison Square Garden last week.
Oh, wow.
A month before, he said he went to the Knicks game with his son, and he walked in and nobody knew who he was. And a week later, he needed a police escort. So it's college basketball. It's college basketball, and everybody, if you're lucky enough, you'll get your one shiny moment, so to speak.
Well, and that brings up two things. He was so damn close to bringing FDU to Madison Square Garden. And he can also say now, hey, the team that knocked us out is still alive.
Yeah, they played them really tough too.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They were in that game until about the 6-minute mark left. So,
yeah.
Well,
yeah, no question. It's a magical run. It was something he'll never forget. Something the country will never forget.
No, nobody's ever going to forget that. And not to knock UMBC when they beat Virginia, but obviously we're talking about a team that, they didn't even win their conference tournament, and then had to win in the first four to get to that 16 versus 1 game. So they were probably a longer shot than even Maryland, Baltimore County from a few years back.
Oh yeah,
I would say so.
It's funny because I went back and watched your show and Tobin's show just to see what we had talked about. And in Tobin's show, and I told this to Dave and Pete, I mentioned to him, hey, you're now in a position, you win your tournament, you're going to be probably a 15, 16 seed. You got a chance to make that miracle happen. And he mentioned the first team, he goes, oh, it would be so awesome. And the first team he mentioned, it would be so awesome to play like a Purdue.
Exactly.
That was the first school he mentioned. That's why it was so funny to me that it ended up being Purdue that he beat. And that was over a year ago. That was just after he took the job at FDU. We had no idea where Purdue was going to be or where he was going to be. So.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a small
no
world.
one knew, or did they? Or did they know?
Yeah.
Well, Coach, college hoops has been, obviously it's been on the forefront for the last few weeks with it being March Madness. But a couple of things have happened, and you're a Central New York guy.
Yep.
two huge retirements, one at a smaller scale, one at a large scale. We'll start with the one that happened first, but were you surprised about Coach Boeheim stepping down? And where do you see Syracuse going in the future? What's your opinion there?
Yeah, I was more surprised at kind of the way that it happened, Joey, than that it did happen. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise in this area. It didn't, from a distance, seem like it was totally planned out or well planned out. But obviously, Coach getting on in age, they've been talking about this for about 8-10 years now,
Right.
So you knew it was going to come at some point. I've had the pleasure, especially in the last couple of years, to get to know Coach a little bit better than I had during, his, previous years. Our paths had crossed just randomly. Our team had done well, and Coach, he follows a lot of basketball, and he follows more small college basketball than what you would think. He really watches and reads the paper and that type of thing. And I just have run into him in restaurants in Syracuse, him and his wife Julie, with me and my wife, and and I've run into him at Drumlin's Country Club, where I belong, when he's been having dinner, and I've gotten an opportunity to sit with him for an hour, a couple times over the last couple of years, and to the point where he, knew who I was. And a week after my dad passed, I was up at one of the preseason practices, and he sat with me for another long period of time before practice began. He actually walked right past John Rothstein, who was there from CBS Sports, and walked past him to sit with me, and it's something I'll never forget. So you're right. I'm a Central New York guy. If you grow up in Syracuse, Jim Boeheim's Syracuse teams is, it's all that I've known since I've been alive. I think he got the job the year I was born. So it was somewhat emotional. And there's anxiety that goes with it. It's like, the weather's not very good around here in upstate New York during the winter. Syracuse basketball has always provided some entertainment value at a point in time during the year where, there's not a lot to get excited about in Central New York. And, I think my view on it is, you certainly celebrate a legacy. I think some of the things, as the coach in me says, is, he was kind of a victim of his own success. It's not without question that the last 2 years he probably fell on some swords a little bit more than in previous years. And you hate to see the end be like that, because he coached at Syracuse with a hometown discount for a long period of time with the way he was compensated. And everything that people in Syracuse and the Syracuse fan base gets upset about, and at times maybe would blame Coach about, he created every single ounce of those expectations, and I'm a big Jim Boeheim supporter. It won't be the same, but like everything in sports, the end does come and you got to move forward. I hope Adrian does really well with the team, and I think he's off to a good start with, JJ Starling committing. And I'm anxious to see what happens with Mintz and with Edwards. And, it sounds like Coach is in big support of Adrian and the job that he can do there. I think it'll be nice to have him still around. But yeah, those are some of my thoughts on Coach Boeheim. Let's put it this way. He's one of those iconic figures where you can truly say, like, things will never, not necessarily be better or worse, but there'll never be another Jim Boeheim. Things will never be the same.
You're right. And I think, I can speak for Pete and Dave. We've all followed, we grew up we don't know what Syracuse basketball is without Jim Boeheim.
Right.
No, I mean, nobody our age does. We have no idea. I mean, maybe there's some old codgers out there that remember the early 70s and late 60s with Dave Bing, or what, even when Coach Boeheim was playing. But there's nobody like that that's going to know that. For Coach Boeheim to, all of a sudden step down, it's going to be a shocker to we don't know what's in store. What's it like without him? Coach Autry's got to be feeling that. A little bit. You would think it's got to be in the back of his mind. I'm taking over for a living legend.
A legend, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be it's a challenge, but you know what? He's been with the program and he has lived that, and I think that's going to be a good thing for him. He understands the history of Syracuse basketball, and I think that'll be something to draw upon, because he's lived it and he has been a part of it, and I think when you can talk about what it's like to put on that uniform and to represent not only the college but a city of people that love college basketball, I think that'll be a really good thing for Adrian to draw upon. And look, I think with change there comes some exuberance, and a shot in the arm, and that could potentially be really good for the program, but you're not gonna go and make things necessarily better, but you can make them different, and different can be better, but it'll be very difficult to top, not just the winning, but the consistency of winning over a long period of time that Coach Boeheim provided, the fan base.
I'll just be curious to see what kind of defense he runs.
That's the question, right?
Yeah,
that's what everybody wants to know. So, I think it'd be a pretty safe wager to say they're going to mix their defenses a little bit more.
Yeah, I would think so too.
So it'll be good. Coach. I'm obviously I really hope that things go in the right direction for Adrian. Nobody wants to see the program not do well, regardless of who the coach is.
No, when Syracuse is down, it's a long winter. That's for a guy that loves basketball and Syracuse hoops. When they're down, it's a long winter.
It's a very unique entertainment value in a place like this compared to others. There's no question about it.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been there. The days that they're packing 30,000 into the dome on a day where they're getting 7 inches of snow and people don't think twice about it. It's just, I don't think people from outside this region don't realize how popular Syracuse basketball is for a wide range, because, all the way to the Canadian border, most people are Syracuse fans.
There's no question about it. So it's, and then, you grow up, and there was a stretch of time before I got married where we would go to the Big East tournament every year, and the fans that would travel down there, I had so many great memories going down to those Big East tournaments, and nothing will ever be like that again.
Well, a couple of things I'll never forget with Boeheim. Obviously, winning the national championship, but the Jerry McNamara interview. Wouldn't have won 10 games, not 10. I'll keep the harsh language out of it. And then, if you've ever seen the 30 for 30, the Requiem for Big East, I mean, Jim is in there a lot. And the one that I loved the most was, as they're doing all the bits and pieces in the history, the live moment was them versus Georgetown in the Big East semifinals, in the last one that they were ever going to play. Because that was when they were leaving to go to the ACC, and just Boeheim saying that was the biggest game for me. That's my rivalry, me and Georgetown. They went on to play Louisville in the championship game that year. They lost to Rick Pitino, but Boeheim was like, that was the one I wanted. I wanted to beat Georgetown one last time. And I always remember that.
Yep. Those are great moments. Those Big East tournaments were just great moments. Nothing like Madison Square Garden.
Well, Coach, we got to get off soon, but we got to say goodbye to one other person too that just stepped down today, and a former guest on our show, and a opponent of yours, and another generational coach. I mean, this guy was there for 28 years. He played there. Coach Tom Spanbauer stepped down from SUNY Cortland today after 28 years on the bench. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, Tom and I have developed a really, really, the way I would describe it, it's a very meaningful friendship to me. And he's a little older than me, but when I got the job here, we knew each other, but not like we do now. And, he's a true company man. He really cares about our league, and the way it's perceived. Tom's got great perspective on, Division III and coaching at this level, what it's supposed to be about. And he's also an excellent tactical coach, and one of the best things that I stumbled upon was, we started playing a little bit of golf together when I was picking up the game, and and there was one summer in particular we spent a lot of time together, and having beers and playing a lot of golf. And it was right after I had my first child, and I had an opportunity just to really get to know him. And then it morphed into something where I talked to him almost every day, and it's kind of cool because, when you're a coach, like, you get home, and then typically a very common thing is, wife and kids will go to bed. Coach will go downstairs, watch film, throw on a game, unwind, have a beer, have a glass of wine, watch, make recruiting calls, whatever it is. And, I had a lot of these late night chats with him by phone, just talking about the league, talking about basketball. And he's, he just had a great perspective on, I just learned a lot of things from him about balancing coaching and winning, and they're two different things, like, you've got to be competitive and establish yourself in this profession, but it can't be at the expense of what the Division III philosophy is, and that's the relationship building component, the alumni component, and kind of taking your medicine when it's appropriate to take your medicine. And, like, at our level, there's not pressure on us to win every single year. You do it because you want to win and you're competitive, but sometimes you don't want to lose sight that you want to maintain a certain level of or standard of the type of people that are in your program. And it's very easy, try to win games and maybe take the wrong people. And he never, ever, ever crossed that line. If you played against his team, if you were to come and watch an Oswego and Cortland game during these 11 years that I coached against Tom, a couple of things, you never see more than 15 combined turnovers in a game. The game would always be over in about an hour and 15 minutes because neither of us took timeouts. Our teams would just play. And there was never any, unsportsmanlike activity. The teams really respected one another. And there were years they were better than us, and there's been years, that we've been better than them. And I think we respected each other's programs. And that stems from the standard that he upheld, and he won games, and you can quote his win-loss record, but he really built a program that was built on things other than just the wins and losses. So those are some things. It's a loss for our league, but obviously you're happy for him. It's hard nowadays to coach 28, 29 years in one place and not lose your job. That's an accomplishment in and of itself. Tom just exemplifies everything that's good about coaching.
Well, obviously, kind of like Coach Boeheim, he loved where he went to school and devoted himself right back to that school for the rest of his life. I guess I've got that a little bit in me. I've been coaching. I played here at SLC. I've been here for 30 years, coaching, in one aspect or another. So,
and Tom, probably like you, has had opportunities to go, and I know he's been offered other jobs, and I like the word you used. He really embraced serving his college, and it might not be as glamorous to other people as what it is to him, because that place is probably Camelot to him.
Yeah. And, he's the mayor of that town,
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Tough act to follow.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, Coach, this hour flew by, and this was awesome. Just to be able to have this college basketball talk. Couldn't be happier for you with the season that you had. Couldn't be happy for you with the connection that you've got with Tobin, and the joy you're feeling for that. You're a Central New York treasure with a little bit of North Country in you. So we're glad to have you on, and we can't wait to have you on again next year.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. And I got to tell you, although I am a Central New York guy, the time that I spent up in the North Country, I think, was as influential on my coaching career as any. Now, obviously, that's the place where I met Tobin Anderson, but my time spent at Potsdam with Bill Mitchell and Jerry Welsh and guys like Chris Downs at St. Lawrence. And it's those are a lot of good memories, and those teams are on our schedule now. When we come up there, it's really meaningful to me to come up and coach in those three gyms at Clarkson, Potsdam, and St. Lawrence, and have people come over and visit with us and watch our team play and support us and follow us. It truly is a real family atmosphere up there, and I'll never forget it. That was a really, really good time in my life.
Well, thanks, Coach. Again, we appreciate having you on, and we will look forward to, as long as Dave and Pete and I can keep ourselves upright and we can keep this show going, as long as you're coaching, we'll be glad to have you back.
Please do. I love talking with you guys about this stuff. You guys do an awesome job.
Thank you.
Hopefully next year, this time, we'll be talking about a banner. So let's keep it.
I hope so. I got to put you in charge of my contract negotiations. I think you're in the wrong profession. You should be doing agent stuff.
How about that? I'm sure we could strong arm somebody for you, but we'll see.
I might take you up on that.
Okay. Coach, thanks a lot for coming on the program. And like Joey said, we can't wait to talk to you again. And we wish you nothing but the best of luck in this upcoming year.
Thanks, guys. You guys are awesome.
Yep. I know all my family in Oswego will be looking forward to watching this interview.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good. I appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. That's going to be it for tonight here on ESS Empire State Sports and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. For Joey, Dave, myself, Pete Goslow, and a very special guest, Jason Leone. Good night, everybody. Stay safe.
He's gone.